Modern gardening gurus say you need complex systems to keep your tomatoes alive through summer. They push fancy drip lines and smart gadgets. But for generations, the Amish have ignored it all. Their secret is ancient, simple wisdom, almost forgotten. This old way lets their tomato plants thrive, producing huge harvests even in a heatwave, with shockingly little effort. It all comes down to one common item, a plain clay pot. It's that feeling every gardener knows. It's a hot afternoon, you're out there with the hose, you give your tomatoes a good long drink, and an hour later, they look just as thirsty and sad as before. You start to wonder, where is all that water even going? It feels like you're just pouring it onto the ground. And honestly? You kind of are. Most of it evaporates or just runs off before it ever gets to the roots. It's a huge waste of water and a ton of work for you. This is why so many of us get frustrated. Our plants are stressed, and we get a handful of mealy tomatoes instead of the huge harvest we dreamed of. But that buried clay pot changes everything. It's a simple, ancient idea that delivers water right to where the plant needs it most, the roots. No waste, no daily watering, and no more stressed out plants. Used healthy, happy tomatoes that will give you buckets of fruit all summer long. To really understand why that buried pot is so revolutionary, we have to look at what's actually happening when you stand there with a hose. So, you point the water at the base of your tomato plant. Where does it go? Well, on a hot day, a huge amount of it just evaporates right off the soil surface before it can even sink in the rest of it. It often just runs off, finding the easiest path away from your plant. Very little of that water ever reaches the deep roots where it's needed most. This creates a really big problem. Because the only water the plant can get is near the surface, its roots learn to stay shallow. They grow sideways, close to the top, waiting for that next quick drink. But shallow roots make for a weak, thirsty plant. It can't reach down for moisture deep in the soil, so it's completely dependent on you watering it constantly. The moment you miss a day, or the sun gets intense, it wilts. This is the vicious cycle so many gardeners get stuck in. You see a wilting plant, so you water it from the top. This encourages weak, shallow roots, which makes the plant get thirsty again even faster. So you have to water it again. It's a ton of work for you and creates a stressed out plant. And there is another problem. When you water from above, you can't help but splash soil and water up onto the leaves. That's a welcome mat for fungal diseases like blight. The wet leaves and humid air around the plant are the perfect home for problems that can wipe out your crop. This isn't just a theory. Gardeners using the Amish clay pot method report using up to 70% less water than people who water from the surface. That number alone shows you just how much water we're wasting with our hoses and watering cans. It all comes down to this: top watering trains your plants to be weak, cysty, and prone to disease. You end up working harder for a smaller, less healthy harvest. Alright, let's get this set up in your garden. It's way easier than you might think, and it only takes a few simple steps. First, you need a pot. But not just any pot. You need a plain, glacé terracotta pot. You know the kind, the classic, slightly rough, orange clay ones. That unglazed part is the whole secret. The clay itself is porous, which means water can slowly seep right through it. If the pot is glazed or sealed, this won't work at all. Now, here is the single most important step. Flip that pot over and plug the drainage hole in the bottom. This is critical. You can use a wine cork, a glob of silicone, or even a flat stone wedged in there really tight. If you skip this, the water will just rush out the bottom all at once. You don't want a flood, you want a slow, steady release. So make sure that hole is sealed up good. Next, decide where your tomato plants are going to live. You'll place one pot to serve a small group of plants. A good rule is that one pot, about a gallon in size, can easily water 2 to 4 plants clustered around it. Dig a hole and sink the pot right into the ground until it's buried up to its neck. All you should see is the rim sticking out of the soil. Once it's settled in, just fill it to the top with water. The final step is to cover it. Place a saucer or a flat rock over the opening like a lid. This does two things: it stops the water from just evaporating in the hot sun, and it keeps dirt, leaves, and bugs from falling in. And that's it. You're done. Now, the magic begins. The water inside the pot will slowly and consistently seep out through the clay walls, delivering moisture directly to the soil, deep underground. Your tomato plants, roots will sense this constant, reliable water source and do something amazing. They grow down deep to get it, creating a strong, healthy root system that can handle stress. The soil surface stays dry, which means fewer weeds pop up. And because you're not splashing water everywhere, the leaves stay dry, though, which is your best defense against those nasty fungal diseases. You've just built a hidden reservoir that trains your plants to be strong and self-sufficient. You end up with a healthier plant that needs far less from you to thrive. So what's actually happening down there in the dark, under the soil? It's not really magic, it's just incredibly smart, ancient science. That unglazed terracotta pot you buried is the key. Think of the clay like a very, very dense sponge. It's porous, which is just a way of saying it's filled with microscopic holes. When you fill the pot with water, that water doesn't just sit there. It starts to get pulled through those tiny holes into the drier soil around it. This process is incredibly slow and gentle. It's not a leak, it's more like a steady, microscopic seep. The soil only pulls as much water as it needs, creating a perfectly consistent level of moisture deep underground. And your tomato plants are smart. Their roots can sense this reliable, underground water source. Instead of staying near the surface, waiting for the next time you show up with the hose, the roots actively grow downwards, reaching for that pot. They build a deep, strong, and extensive root system because they know that's where the good stuff is. This is what makes the plant so resilient. When a heat wave hits, a plant with shallow roots will wilt almost immediately. But your plant? Its roots are deep down in the cool, moist earth, totally protected. Now, let's talk about efficiency, because this is where the system really shines. Studies and countless gardener experiences show this method can cut your water use by up to 70%. 70%. Think about it. When you water from the top, how much of that water just evaporates in the sun before it even sinks in? How much runs off to the side? With the clay pot, nearly every single drop goes exactly where it's needed, the root zone. There is almost zero waste. This is also why it's so good for the overall health of your garden bed. You're creating a targeted delivery system. As a general rule of thumb, a single 1-gallon pot is perfect for a space that's about 4 to 5 square feet. That means it can easily handle 2, 3, or even 4 tomato plants clustered around it, all sharing from the same central reservoir. What Jube essentially built is an automatic, self-regulating irrigation system that responds directly to your plant's needs. When the soil is dry, it pulls more water. When it's moist after a rain, it pulls less. You're not just giving your plants water. You're creating the perfect environment for them to build the strength they need to thrive all on their own. So, what we've seen is how one simple clay pot can completely change the game for your tomato plants. You get to save a huge amount of water, sometimes up to 70% less than normal watering. That means less work for you, and a lot less waste. It's truly a method that goes beyond just watering. It creates the perfect environment for your tomatoes to thrive, giving them exactly what they need, deep down. No more struggling plants. No more wasted effort. This buried pot isn't just a trick, it's a forgotten piece of gardening wisdom that proves simple solutions can often be the most powerful. It makes you wonder what other easy, ancient methods we've overlooked in our quest for complicated systems. If you're ready to ditch the complicated gadgets and discover more straightforward ways to make your garden flourish, ways that have stood the test of time, then hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what other simple secrets we uncover next.